Hey, good evening, everybody. We'll call to order our December 20th, 2023 regular board session. I'll begin by asking each commissioner to please respond with a here when I call out your name. Commissioner Doan. Here. Commissioner Duggan. Here. Commissioner Fisher. Here. And Commissioner Lysak. Here. Thank you, everybody. We'll begin this evening by having a report from our CEO, Paul Matthews, and his management staff.
Thank you, President Sanders, Commissioners. You up here? A quick briefing on our water supply. We've talked about this in the past, but TDW has activated the backdown system. This is a backup supply system for the city of Portland to supply water, takes water over the Sylvan Hill. We're doing that as we shut down the Washington County supply line to connect the Metzger pipeline east to the Washington County supply line in Beacon Hillsdale Highway. The backdown system has a capacity of about 7 million gallons per day. Our demand in the Wolf Creek area, which is served from that, it's about 50 million gallons per day. So we'll get the balance of that out of the JWC. The backdown system doesn't have the ability to fluoridate the water, so we've paused fluoridation in the Wolf Creek area. And as usual, there will be no fluoride in the Metzger area, which is our standard practice. And it takes about 1.5 million gallons per day of water there. The city banks have asked the district to provide direct responsible charge services for them. And this is the individual who would operate their water system. The district entered into a memorandum of understanding with the city to provide the DOC services and other operational support. TDW staff will assist the city team and oversee the operations of Banks' slow sand filter, plant, distribution system, and emergency response services. And the Joint Water Commission of Wyoming are making more assignments in the coming year. This year, the officer elections will be in Denver. This year, TDW is not scheduled to serve in a chair role. So unless the board takes action, we'll continue with the same membership of the Wyoming and the Joint Water Commission that we have. Just thought I'd highlight what those are for the JWC. Commissioner Sanders is serves on the executive committee for the JWC, and as such, we expect the JWC to name you as a vice chair. And then Commissioner Doan and Commissioner Lysak are both members that vote. With the JWC, all three members are voting members of that body. Finals a little different, and then there's actually only one vote per agency. So Commissioner Sanders is the voting member, and Commissioner Doan is the primary alternate, and Commissioner Lysak is the secondary alternate. A quick update on the PFAS class action lawsuit. The district considered settlements of contamination of its supply based on this PFAS issue. If we have questions about that, we'll get somebody else that can pronounce the actual name. Doesn't have to use the acronym PFAS. But this is a contamination that could happen to our water. There were two separate class action lawsuits brought against the major manufacturers of PFAS, which were 3 in the DuPont. We discussed this with the board previously, but the district decided to opt out of the current class action. First, most of the PFAS detections have been in groundwater, but all committed water systems in the U.S. were automatically included in the settlements. So we were in the settlements, we opted out. The payment for the settlement would be based on the formula of detection levels. And if we had been part of the lawsuit, we would be barred from any future PFAS claims against 3 or more DuPont. So based on that we haven't had any PFAS detections yet, including in the alignment, opting out, then we'll preserve our ability, if we have future problems with PFAS, to litigate against those 2 companies. With that, concludes my part of the report. I'll turn it over to Dave Kraska, our Water Supply Program Director, who will present the department report this evening.
Thank you, Paul. Good evening, commissioners. So my presentation to you tonight is about Baseline 9. So it's an annual effort that we go through each year, and we're getting started on it right now. And I wanted to give you kind of an update of kind of what it is, what it looks like, and kind of where we're headed with it. So the outline that for this presentation is to give you the background and the components of the baseline, talk about contingency and management reserve and how they're used and how they're different, and then the forecast of what the baseline 9 budget looks like. So there's 3 main parts to the baseline. There's the schedule, the cost estimate or the overall budget, and the cost shares to each of the partners. Why adopt a baseline and when? Well, it's part of our IGA. It's part of our requirement in the WWSS to do this each year. And it's updated if needed. In terms of like, how is it used? It's for all these reasons right here. It's for planning and managing our work to make sure that we're on track, establishing fiscal year budgets, which is what we're doing right now, detecting any potential changes or variances, provides input to our risk analysis, particularly as it relates to management reserve, reporting to boards, partners, WIFIA, and to the public in terms of like, are we on track with our budget and schedule and so on? So we have something to measure against. And then finally, input to forecasting for our partners to manage their finances to afford the program. So in terms of like the overall schedule, it kind of looks like this each year, but it starts in November, December, where our team works to look across all of the projects that we have going on in the program and update the budgets that we have for them, and also do this in projections for management reserve. Late in December, so late this year, we provide the draft baseline to all of our partners. We meet in January to go over that and address any comments. Our goal is to bring that to the management committee for approval in late January so we can bring it to the board for approval in February. I'm not anticipating a lot of changes to the baseline, so I'm pretty optimistic we'll be able to keep to that schedule. The IGA, however, requires us to bring the baseline. It's not even like a hard deadline, but basically they say April, that we have to have it done in April. And I think the words in the IGA are actually to endeavor to complete this by April. But I'm optimistic we're going to be able to get this done by February. There's 3 main components to the baseline. There's all the projects, there's the system-wide costs and management reserve. Let me go through each one of those for you. Projects, pretty self-explanatory, but all the costs built up into that is project management, design, construction, and so on. And there's also a contingency component. System-wide are basically the costs that are spread across all of the projects to get the whole program done. That's our program management, our overall design and construction management, permitting, mitigation, real estate controls, outreach, legal, system integration, and then finally management reserve is for program-wide risks and project-level risks. Let me explain that a little bit. And there's also these 2 categories here, contingency and management reserve. And sometimes they get confused, and I think it's worthwhile to just take a couple minutes to explain the differences between the 2 of them. So project contingency is used for changes within the scope of the project and minor price fluctuations. We know that we don't have perfect knowledge going into any of our projects, and our design documents are not perfect. And so we got to have a contingency amount to address any sort of changes that come along. A couple of examples for you here tonight on regarding how we've used project contingency. On our MPE 1.2 project, that's our pipeline project in Shoals Ferry Road. It goes across 217 up to Allen. We were going in front of a school district there, and during the construction of our project, they kind of implored us to please not do construction while in front of their facility while school was in progress. So we had to either switch it to night work or weekend work, and so we had to make that change. Cost us a little bit in terms of our contractor. They had to like modify their operations, but it was still worthwhile for us to do that because it maintained good relations with the school district and safety really for the kids that were traveling in the area. PLM 4.3, and during the implementation of that project, that's our pipeline project in Red Rogers Road, north of Sherwood up to Beef Bend. So on that one, we had to do some revisions to the size and locations of the appurtenances. Appurtenances are blow-offs at the low parts of the pipeline or air relief valves in the high parts of the pipeline. And PLM 5.2, that's our pipeline project in Shoals Ferry Road going west and up Tile Flat Road. So that one, we had some additional access ways and an additional survey that was needed during construction. So as you can see, the contingency is used for project level changes that are needed that are generally within the scope of the project. Management reserve, however, is for things that are outside of project contingency, so larger impacts to our overall project costs. Certainly beyond the intent and amount of changes, changes also addresses changes to our system-wide. So all the system-wide costs that I mentioned to you, we don't hold contingency on them. It's held in management reserve. any changes to our IGA costs or intergovernmental agreements with, say, Washington County, or any scope adds from the owners, from TVW, Hillsborough, Beaverton. Some examples for you here. Raw water facility GMP2, that one came in, that was bid during some of the significant cost increases post-COVID, and that one came in significantly higher than anticipated, so that represented a draw on management reserve. Owner's water supply integration communication project, that was a project that was added to help get the work done. So it was a few $100,000. We did not have that in our baseline budget, so it represented a draw on management reserve. And then finally, partnering costs on with one of our Washington County projects. There was the implementation of one of those projects. It was actually along 124th Avenue. Some of the costs of that were significantly higher than we had originally budgeted and anticipated, and that represented a draw on management reserve. So this gives you an idea, kind of the purpose of why we have contingency at the project level, and we also have management reserve in terms of like staying within budget overall in the overall program. Now, we talk about the history of baseline budgets. This is one of the graphs or charts that I like to show in public meetings. We're basically just being transparent and like, are we staying on budget and are we tracking well in terms of the costs that we've committed to the public here? And so this is a chart that I presented back in August at the most recent rate hearing presentations that we were doing. It goes going from left to right. We have the year the baseline budget was done, the number of the baseline, 1.1 and so on. The total budget, management reserve balance, then notes, just kind of the significant changes between them. And if you look here, you'll see from 2016 through 2020, we stayed around $1.2, $1.3 billion. So we were managing the cost pretty well. Going from 1.2 to 1.3, one of the major changes there is we added our MPE project, our supply out to the Metzger area. That added about $100 million to our overall costs. And that was the scope add that changed us to 1.2 to 1.3 in general. And then you see that from 2021, where we were at 1.3, then to 2022, all of a sudden 1.6. And that was, as I've presented to you in many of our meetings, just the significant cost increases post-COVID, all the supply chain issues, labor market issues, materials issues, and so on. We went from 1.3 to 1.2, or 1.6, I'm sorry. And in these presentations, one of the things I say is that we're operating at a different level now, because now we have construction contracts that we're managing instead of engineers' estimates that we're using for these forecasts. And so I predicted that we would be more predictable in terms of our overall program costs. And I'm happy to say that we're continuing that trend. That what we're forecasting for our baseline budget for fiscal 24 or for year 2024, which will take us through July 2024 to June 2025, $1.6 billion. So keep it on track there. We're still working on in terms of what our management reserve balance is going to be, and obviously the notes will come along with that. But right now, off the top of my head, I believe we're trending around $50 million roughly for management reserve. We have a couple of smaller draws on management reserve that during some of the work that's gone on over the past year, but still really healthy management reserve for the risks that we have identified and are left to be completed on the program. And that is it for my brief department report for tonight. I'd be glad to take any questions if there are any. Otherwise, I'm done. Thank you.
Open questions. That concludes the CEO report. Management staff. Thanks.
Next item is our Commissioner communications and reports of meetings attended. We'll begin this evening with Commissioner Doan.
Well, first I'd like to point out that my 55th wedding anniversary is tomorrow. And the pictures at our wedding show me with my boot camp haircut. And but we made it for 55 years. And my meetings, I met with Paul on the 4th, work session on the 5th, and the regular meeting tonight. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Doan. Commissioner Duggan.
I attended the board work session that we had on the 5th. On the 7th was the WWSS board meeting, and we had an executive session beforehand. Main agenda item for that meeting was approving the water treatment plant 1.0 GMP number 2 contract, which the board approved. On the 12th, I attended the Washington County CPO number 1 meeting where we got local updates, including one from Justin Dyke, who gave a very good summary of our winter flushing program, hydrant flushing, and then the pause on the fluoride, which I'm surprised you didn't get a whole lot more questions about, but it was a good update. So thank you, Justin, for doing that. And then the main body of that meeting, they were talking about local pedestrian crossings and mid-block crossings, and we received other updates from the local governments. And then tonight's meeting. That's it for this month.
Thank you. Commissioner Fisher.
Well, on the 5th, I also attended our work session. And then on the 12th, I attended our agenda planning meeting. And on the 13th, I attended the Westside Economic Alliance end of the year meet and greet event that they hold just to meet other members of the Westside Economic Alliance. And then tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Commissioner Lysick.
The work session on the 5th and tonight's regular meeting.
Thank you. I'll be finalized here. Last person. I'm going backwards chronologically, and I have 2 months because I didn't report last month. Tonight's board meeting, the 12th, the board agenda setting meeting with Commissioner Fisher and Paul. The 13th meeting with our consultant on intergovernmental relations, Norm Eder. I'm meeting bi-weekly with Paul. He's been gracious enough to keep up those meetings as his role as CEO has joined in. The monthly work session on the 5th. 4th, I met with Norm Eder. On the 30th, again, I met with Paul. And then going backwards all the way to November, the November 15th board meeting, the November 14th agenda meeting, the 13th with Norm, the 9th of November meeting with Paul again, and then the 7th work session. So that is it for me. Oh, there's one more. It was October 30th when we met with North Plains. All right. That being said, then the next item up are topics to be raised by commissioners. Do we have any topics to be raised by commissioners at this time? Other than congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. Doan for, did you say 55 years?
She's put up with me.
That usually the case for all of us. Yeah. It is. So congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. Doan. I will mention that I asked my dentist if they knew about the stoppage of the fluoride, and they did. I don't say that like, oh my God, are you surprised? I just asked the question. They said, yes, we knew about that. So I thought that was pretty cool. So we got boots on the ground checking. So I was like, right on, very cool. All right, so that being said, we'll move on to our next item this evening, which is our public comment. Public comment time is set aside for persons wishing to address the board on items on the consent agenda and matters not on the agenda. Additional public comment will be invited on agenda items as they are presented. Do we have any persons this evening who would like to comment?
Not seeing any.
Not hearing any then. We will then move on to our consent agenda, where our consent agenda items are considered to be routine and may be enacted in one motion without a separate discussion. Any board member requests that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action. Any items requested to be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion will be considered immediately after the board has approved those items which do not require discussion. This evening, we will seek a consent agenda to approve the November 7th, 2023 work session minutes, the November 15th, 2023 regular meeting minutes, and the December 5th, 2023 work session meeting minutes, as well as a resolution establishing regular monthly meeting dates for the 2024 calendar year and the approval of the Regional Water Providers Consortium, IGA. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented?
This is Jim, excuse me. This is Jim Doan, so moved.
Commissioner Duggan seconded.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not hearing any, the motion passes. Thank you, everyone. The next item this evening is our business agenda, and we will begin with the TVWD audit presentation and report acceptance by Justin Carlton, our interim Chief Financial Officer.
President Sanders and Commissioners, good evening. Tonight's presentations, I'll be covering brief introductions as well as high-level financial highlights. And that'll be followed by a presentation by Moss Adams. And then staff will have some closing remarks as well as a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to accept the audit. I'd like to present Julie Desimone here from Moss Adams. She will be presenting on behalf of the auditors. And just some high-level items for the financial performance for FY23 include revenues that did exceed budget as well as expenditures that were below budget. And that helped contribute to a very healthy fund balance as we approach the spending peaks on the Willamette Water Supply Program, and will help contribute to our funding needs as that program reaches the downhill slope and completion in 2027. Now that, I'm happy to introduce Julie Desimone, CPA from Moss Adams.
Thank you for having me here tonight. First, I'm going to apologize if I look a little tired or rummy. I just got back from a 28-hour flight structure from American Samoa auditing their power and water systems at 2 a.m. this morning. I also love that I have a 20-year-old son who, after coming home from college, actually wanted to see his mom and picked me up at the airport at 2 o'clock in the morning, rather than having to try to find an Uber at that time. So pleased so much to be here tonight with you. We are just about, we're actually sending the audit into the universe tomorrow. But what I want to do is have a chance to give the board a synopsis of our audit process. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, so please feel free to stop me at any time or speed me up at any time. I want to talk to you a little bit about the engagement team, some of the nature of the procedures that we performed and the services that we provided, some of our significant audit areas, as well as our opinion and reports that are coming out, which are quite a few this year. So required communications we need to make with you as those charged with governance. A couple slides on just audit adjustments and things we found during the course of the audit and control matters. So these terrible, okay, the first picture is terrible. These pictures, they make us put pictures and presentations now. This is your audit team. And I think the one thing that I really wanted to impress, this is just a portion of our audit team. We have a big team that comes. So every year, if you've been here before, you see my face quite a bit. But I am a very, very small sliver in what is a big audit team that's going to give you an opinion upon these financial statements. Probably a very important fact for the board to consider is the Keith Simovic, or our concurring review partner. Keith is a part of our audit that he doesn't actually have communication with the management team or anything else to do with TVWD. What he does is he takes a cold review of the audit. He has to accept our planning. He has to accept our risk assessment. He takes a look at the entire financial statements and all of our conclusions. And before I can actually send an audit out the door as your engagement partner, he has to bless the audit and fulfill his quality control procedures. Luckily, we cleared all those procedures today, so we're able to move forward with the issuance of the audit. Lots of words on the slide, I apologize, but let me tell you a little bit about the audit. The first thing is talking a little bit about the audit. We do it on the combined TVWD audit as a whole. I'm trying to read. All these things are very small for older eyes, I feel like. But first and foremost, we take a look at the financial statements to make sure that they're in alignment with governmentally accepted auditing standards and generally accepted accounting principles. It's important to note, because you have the WIFIA loan, you've actually elevated into additional procedures in the last 2 years, which we call GAGAS, generally are governmentally governmental auditing standards. So we have to place an opinion upon both the WIFIA program, we have to place an opinion on your financial statements, and it's all under these governmental auditing standards, which are actually more intense than generally accepted auditing standards. We will be completing an audit, an opinion on your internal controls. We'll be issuing an opinion on your internal controls. We do take a look at internal controls, but it's important to also note it's not like in the SEC realm where we're placing a significant opinion upon that. We're really looking at financial results, financial amounts, and we're looking through internal controls over compliance procedures. You also have another set because we reside in the state of Oregon, the Oregon minimum standards, another set of about 13 procedures that we have to do as your auditor and provide a report that will be submitted to the state no later than 30 days after we issue the report, which is planned to be tomorrow. I think I said everything. And then finally, we're here tonight. So this is the communication to those charged with governance, and we're giving you this information. All right. These are just a few of the significant audit areas. I just want to make sure that you understand we look at a lot more than just this. But if we were to have to take the audit and put it down into a very short period of time, these are some really important parts of the audit that we take a pretty significant look at. First is your work orders and your overall plan. And we do this not only with TBWD, but all your subs as well. You're spending a lot of money in plant. Most utilities are spending a lot of money in plant. I think you're on a much more revved up basis because of the Willamette supply system. So we have to take a very significant look at it as well. We look at the controls, who's looking at segregation of duties to make sure you've got checks and balances along the way. We look at cost structures, procurement, all the things that build up into your cost structure that is being capitalized into your plant assets and into your JV's plants as well. What's becoming more and more important every day is IT security and access. When I started this business 25 plus years ago, we used to walk around as auditors to see doors are locked. The doors are locked are important, but it's way more important to watch those computers be locked and that we have individual sign-ons and that we have access to the systems because that's where all of our information and control resides in today's realm. It's important for us to take a look at that, understand what change management, who's got access, and segregation of duties, and we take a pretty hefty, significant look at that through the course of the audit. Obviously, I already talked about your investment in your subs. It's a huge dollar flow and a huge investment. Take a significant look at that as well as your application of internal controls. The piece I probably haven't talked about that's very important, it's always about cash in and cash out. So where does your cash come from? Ratepayers. So we have to make sure that all of those controls are appropriate and then cash out your disbursements, payrolls, and then all your work order functions. And then finally, we just talked a little bit about your Oregon minimum standards and your federal audit that's required because of the WIFIA loan and the amount of money that you're getting from the WIFIA loan. We had a substantial part of our audit dedicated to those as well. Before I move off this slide, or maybe not, got ahead of myself. Any questions? Perfect. Good news. Here to report to you. We once again gave you an unmodified opinion on your financial statements. Unmodified in weird auditor speak is a clean opinion upon your financial statements. This is what you should expect as a board. This is what your constituents expect, all your ratepayers expect, your debt holders expect, and all of your counterparties expect. It's once again, I think you've got the GFOA award. Well, they're out there if you want to count them. But they're, 32 years now running, so way older than I am, right? We also did place an opinion on governmental auditing standards, and you did get a clean opinion upon on government and auditing standards and your schedule over federal expenditures. The one thing that'll look different in this, your WIFIA loan we have determined does not have what we call ongoing compliance requirements. So you're only required to put it on your schedule of federal expenditures as you draw the funds down and we do the testing in that year. In subsequent years, your beginning balance falls off. We still have a note in there to describe the loan. So the number that's sitting on that when you saw it is really just the amount that came in this year. You drew down from that loan structure this year. It doesn't mean that you don't have to pay the rest of it back. That's just what we're doing our compliance procedures over in the current year. And then finally, your Oregon minimum standards. Pleased to report no findings on your Oregon minimum standards. Probably your greatest areas or your most significant areas are budgeting and budget revisions, procurement and contracting, and insurance reserve requirements. All right, this is some of the fun stuff or just stuff I have to tell you about. So it's important for us to talk about what is going on during the course of the audit. You are who we work for, and therefore we need to let you know of certain areas of the audit. It's important to know that we don't look at every single transaction in your financial statements. We would be here, well, I'm not sure how anybody would look at everything that's going on. But we do risk assess, and we do there's some account balances that we do look at every single thing, and there's some that we apply analytical procedures, sampling technologies, use of control structure, and there's some stuff that we say there's no inherent risk to this account, therefore maybe it falls below a certain scope. So those financial statements are management's financial statements. We are here to place an opinion upon those financial statements, which is what we're here doing tonight. It's also important to understand the significant accounting policies. I know they're boring to read, especially if you read it every year. There are note one to the financial statements, but it's important to note because if any changes occur from year to year, it's going to change the way that numbers are derived. So you have to understand those changes. In the current year, usually we see two types of changes. Operational, so if you operate differently as an entity, it might cause some of those fluctuations, or what we've been seeing for the last 15 years, because GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, needs to take a 5-year hiatus to give us a breath of fresh air. But they have done a lot of work in the last 15 years in accounting standards. We had 2 big standards implemented, one that impacted TVWD, the other one actually didn't impact TVWD. But these are standards that we have to look at every year. So you do have one new accounting standard or a new policy in your financial statements about subscription-based IT arrangements. I'll talk about that in a sec. Pleased to report, I skipped a couple of them. We also know that there are some judgments and accounting estimates within the financial statements. What we need to do is assess management's bias, and we need to make sure that these estimates are consistent with industry standard, and we don't see any bias from management. All of your accounting estimates are very free of management bias. These are things like your allowance for doubtful account. How long do you think your utility plant is going to stay alive? Some of the estimates with the pensions and some of the different things of longevity of life and that kind of thing that are kind of handled at the state level. Discount rates with leasing and SUBITAs, which is a subscription-based arrangements. So yeah, we take a look at them, we see if there's bias and report out if there is any. We don't know of any consultations with other accountants. This gets back to the old days of opinion shopping. We also didn't have any disagreements with management. I want to be careful with this one because this is an important distinction for, I think, the board to make. That doesn't mean we disagree from time to time. That's our job as auditors and management, is to say we might be not at odds, but we might look at something a little bit differently. What this gets to is handcuffing during the audit. Were we able to get access to information, talk to the right people, make sure that we had clear and consistent information, tone at the top from management? If we have that, that's where this clears up. So we want to have good, robust conversations. We actually want clients to disagree with us. These are complex accounting standards. We want to make sure that we have all the information together. But what we don't want to do is have a lack of access to any information or that open door policy gets closed to the auditor's face. And I can tell you for sure that did not happen at this audit. All right, please also report. So we have 2 types of adjustments when we come through an audit. An audit adjustment is either one that the auditors find that management decides to post, so they put within the financial statements, or that when we find that is over a certain scope, that to get a clean opinion, they have to post to the financial statements. Very pleased to report that we had none this year, and that's what we've come to expect. The reason for this, management takes their job of preparing solid financial statements before the auditors come in very seriously. The trial balances are complete. Everything is accurate. If there is certain things that are still open, which there can be at any time, we know about it day one. So things like the pension reporting that maybe you're waiting on information from the state, we know when we walk through the door that we're waiting on that, what management's plans are for that. So these are things that really the auditor finds. And in fact, it's interesting with our past. So we have a threshold that's not significant enough to have to post a change in opinion reader's decision on financials. But we have to accumulate over a certain scope because we have this thing called aggregation risk as well. But what's important to note is this is an interesting past adjustment. This is one that management handed us to us on day one. So I talked a little bit about the IT arrangements. Once all the work, a tremendous amount of work went into finding all these arrangements, there were really only 3 that came into the standard. There was one for Open Vision, the Open Sparks. I'm going to get it one of these days. For the open system, that is currently being recorded on the financial statements, and you'll see a bunch of notes disclosure on that because it's significant. The 2 others they were tiny. But because we as an auditors have to make sure that we don't have 100 of these, we have to post the entry for our records and make sure they don't accumulate or aggregate into significant risk. So this entry right here was really just those 2. We're going to monitor and look at those and make sure that they never get above, or there's not more of them that get above what we would consider to be an aggregation risk. All right. That is all I have for you. I guess I didn't change the agenda because we do have some best practices. We've been talking with Justin and David and the team along the way, and we do have best practices. So part of the audits is we want to give back some value to it. So any kind of feedback that we have from best practices, or if we see internal control, things that can elevate the internal control structure, we are consistently meeting with management and have already done so on those issues. But I want to put a huge thank you out to your team. If your team didn't do what they needed to do, we would never be in front of you tonight as the face of the audit. We ask for thousands and thousands of pages of information. We ask for, when we're here, to be able to talk to a significant amount of people throughout the organization. And I can tell you from experience of this year's audit and before, there's a serious tone at the top. The audit is taken seriously. We are able to talk to anybody that we please through the audit. And we really appreciate all the candor and helpfulness through the course of the audit so that we can be here today so we can meet your state deadline. Any questions?
Thank you for your time.
And I apologize that I'm probably going to run out, but I'm going to go to bed.
Making the effort.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Excuse me. Thank you, Ms. Desmond. I was very appreciative for you making the time and effort to be here tonight. I also want to thank the leadership team and the TBWE finance team for being able to get this completed. It's quite a hurdle this year with the transitions going on, and everybody rose to the challenge. And I was very grateful that I was able to step into this interim assignment and have most of this work completed. So thank you to the team for getting that done. And on that note, I'll present the recommendation to the board to, by motion, accept the report of the independent auditor and the district's annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal years ended June 30th, 2023 and 2022. Thank you.
Do I have a motion and a second to accept?
This is Commissioner Lysak, so moved.
This is Commissioner Fisher, I second.
Fantastic. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Not hearing any, the motion passes. Congratulations to the finance team for once again an outstanding report. And thank you to Moss Adams for making it after such an arduous journey. I'm sure it was worth it though.
Oh, amazingly worth it.
Fantastic.
Great place.
All right, thank you. Next item up this evening is the CEO employment agreement with a presentation by Clark Balfour. I guess none of his management team could join us, so Clark.
It is the holidays. I thought that they
Everybody did we get off.
so this hopefully is a short and simple presentation. The board back in October appointed Paul Matthews as your interim CEO. And then at your meeting last month, you directed staff to prepare a contract to appoint Paul as the permanent CEO. That contract is in your packet. It is what I would call a very standard CEO contract. In fact, it's probably what you might describe as vanilla. It does not contain special payment provisions. It does not contain extra extra vacation, extra deferred compensation, any of those things. It's salary plus the normal benefits that all other TBWD employees accrue, depending upon longevity and those sorts of things. So this is actually kind of a refreshing contract if you get right down to it. And so if the board is so inclined, we would ask that you adopt resolution 23-23 to appoint Paul Matthews as your permanent CEO and to authorize the board president to sign on behalf of the district. And I'll take questions.
Do I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 23-23 to approve the chief executive officer employment agreement between TBWD and Paul Matthews?
This is Jim Doan, so moved.
Commissioner Lysick, I second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes, and on behalf of the board, congratulations, Paul.
Thank you.
Your leadership team was very insistent that you be brought in and placed into this role. I think you have a wonderful team behind you. I think you have a wonderful team around you. I think we're very fortunate, maybe a couple years too late, to have you in this leadership role. And I'm really happy to see where we go from here, Paul. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate that. And I agree wholeheartedly. We have a great leadership team. Honored to work with them. So thank you.
Marvelous. All right, not seeing any more items on our agenda. I will adjourn in just a second, but please remind everybody that we're going to head over for an executive session immediately thereafter. And before we do adjourn, wish everybody a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, whatever holiday you are celebrating with loved ones or just taking time off for yourself. Please do it happily, safely, joyfully, and we will see everybody in 2024. And for those of us who are getting old, 2020, what? Making us feel younger every year.
I'll just point out that today I was ID'd at the Safeway and I was buying some champagne. I'm younger than 21.
22, baby.
And you have to believe this or not, driver's license I had is the one that I removed last year. So it was expired, which caused a whole other error.
Eat the champagne.
Yeah, for obvious reasons.
Fantastic. In that case, then, this meeting is adjourned and we'll gather together.
And for the record, the board will be entering into an executive session under orders 192.6602H to consult with the council concerning the legal rights and duties of the public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed.
Mr. Jones, I had our 35th anniversary